I paid for my sister's honeymoon with her new fiancé for $6,000, only to have her call me loser at family dinner and say it was cheap. I got angry and cut them off, but then I still can't believe I let Amanda talk me into this. My sister has always been dramatic, to say the least, but when she came to me for help with her honeymoon, I thought maybe this time was different. Maybe she'd finally grown up a little. To set the scene, Amanda had just married Kevin, a decent guy, surprisingly. Her first husband, Brandon, had been a total disaster. The kind of guy who thought job was a four-letter word and treated her like a maid instead of a partner. I'd always kept my distance from her relationship drama, but when they divorced, it was hard not to say, "I told you so." When she met Kevin, though, I had hope. He was responsible, polite, and actually had a career in marketing. He also seemed genuinely crazy about her, which was a first. They got engaged after a whirlwind 6 months of dating, and before I knew it, she was asking me to help with the wedding. I said no, it wasn't my place, but I gave them a nice check and thought that was it. Then Amanda called me about the honeymoon. She said they'd been looking at a 9-day trip to Hawaii, flights, bungalows on the beach, nice restaurants, the works. But apparently they'd underestimated how much it would cost. She claimed she didn't want to go into debt so early in their marriage and asked if I'd be willing to help out a little. At first I was hesitant. Amanda and I have always had a rocky relationship. She's the kind of person who wants the world handed to her on a silver platter and gets upset when it doesn't happen. But Kevin seemed to be such a good influence on her, and honestly, I was just happy that she'd moved on from Brandon. I thought maybe if I helped them get their marriage off to a good start, Amanda would finally appreciate me for once. I agreed. And by help a little, she meant $6,000. I paid for everything: flights, accommodations in some ridiculously expensive beach bungalows, fancy dinners, and even a few activities like snorkeling and a helicopter ride. It was a lot, but I figured if it made them happy, it was worth it. The weird thing was, once they got there, I didn't hear a word from her. Amanda, who practically lives on Instagram, didn't post a single photo. No stories, no captions about living my best life. Nothing. It wasn't just unusual, it was bizarre. My wife, my parents, even my younger sister V noticed and thought it was weird. Kevin had always been annoyed by her constant obsession with social media, so we thought maybe he'd convinced her to unplug for a while. When they returned, I was eager to hear how it went. We'd all agreed to meet at my parents' house for dinner that Saturday: me, my wife, Amanda and Kevin, our parents, and V. When Amanda walked in, tan but with a sour look on her face, I had a sinking feeling that whatever she was about to say wasn't going to be good. The moment Amanda sat down, the mood changed. She didn't say much at first, just fiddled with her drink and let Kevin do all the talking. He seemed relaxed, even happy, as he told us about the trip. "The snorkeling was amazing," he said. "We saw sea turtles, tropical fish, it was like being in another world. And the helicopter ride over the volcanoes? Unreal." My parents and V took it all in and asked a lot of questions. Even I was starting to feel good about my decision. It sounded like they'd had a great time. Kevin showed us some pictures on his phone, the sunset view from their bungalow, a fancy dinner by the water, Amanda smiling in a flower lei. "So," he said with a grin, "it sounds like a pretty awesome honeymoon." My mom chimed in. "Your brother really went all out for you too. It's such a wonderful way to start your new life together." Everyone nodded in agreement. I glanced at Amanda, expecting her to finally crack a smile or at least say thank you. Instead, she put down her drink, stood up and said, "Are you kidding me?" The room fell silent. "A 9-day vacation? That's it. Who does that?" Amanda snapped. "You know what people post online? Month-long trips to Europe. Yacht parties in Santorini. They couldn't even book us more than a bungalow? And don't even get me started on the restaurants, half the places were basic." I blinked, stunned. At first I thought she was joking, but the look on her face said otherwise. "You're such a loser," she continued, glaring at me. "How could you be so cheap? If you couldn't afford a real honeymoon, you shouldn't have offered in the first place. My wife's fork clattered on her plate. V's jaw dropped. Even Kevin looked embarrassed. My mom and dad exchanged one of those silent "What just happened?" looks, and the whole table turned to me, waiting for my reaction. I took a deep breath and looked Amanda straight in the eye. "Wow. You're amazing," I said. And then I let her have it. "Amanda, can you hear yourself right now?" I said. "I spent $6,000 to give you and Kevin the honeymoon of your dreams. $6,000. And you stand here and call me cheap? A loser? Are you serious?" She crossed her arms and looked defiant, but I wasn't about to back down. "The fact that you even feel entitled to complain about something like that is insane. Do you know how many people would kill for a trip like this? Do you have any idea how spoiled you sound?" Amanda rolled her eyes, and that was that. Something inside me snapped. I stood up and continued. "You want to talk about being cheap? Fine. Let's talk about how you've never paid me back for anything in your life. Not the help with your car when you were in college, not the money I loaned you to cover your rent when you moved out on your own, and definitely not the money I gave you after your divorce because you said you were struggling. I've always helped you because you're my sister, but this is beyond selfish. You can forget about me ever doing anything like this for you again." Amanda's face turned red, but before she could say anything, I turned to Kevin. "And honestly, I feel sorry for you, man," I said. "You're a good guy, but if this is how she treats people who go out of their way for her, you're in for a rough ride." Kevin looked like he was going to disappear into his chair. My mother started to say something, but I put my hand up to stop her. "I'm not finished," I said, turning back to Amanda. "Let me make this very clear. If you keep acting like this, no one is going to want to help you. Not me, not mom and dad, not anyone. And no, having 11,000 Instagram followers doesn't make you some kind of star, so stop acting like the world owes you something. You're not a princess, and I'm done pretending you are." The room was dead silent. Even Amanda looked like she didn't know what to say for once. My dad coughed awkwardly and my mom tried to smooth things over, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. I grabbed my coat, looked at my wife and said, "We're leaving." As we walked out, I could hear Amanda muttering something under her breath, but I didn't care enough to turn around. I was done. Amanda's words echoed in my head as we drove home. I couldn't believe it. $6,000 and she called me cheap. My wife didn't say much during the drive, but I could tell she was as angry as I was. When we got home, she finally broke the silence. "You did the right thing," she said. "But what about Kevin? He didn't even try to defend you. He just sat there like a statue." That bothered me, too. Kevin had always seemed like the calm, collected type, but tonight he looked like he'd rather be somewhere else. At first I thought he was just embarrassed, but now I wasn't so sure. Something about his expression during Amanda's tirade had seemed off. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing. It was my mom. I wasn't in the mood to rehash everything, but I answered it anyway. "She came over," my mom said. "Amanda. Early this morning? Let me guess, she's still mad?" My mom sighed. "No, actually. She was crying. She said you humiliated her in front of everyone, and now Kevin barely speaks to her." That got my attention. Why would Kevin be angry with her? I was the one who left. "I don't know," my mother said. "But she kept saying how everything was ruined and how you don't understand what she's dealing with." That threw me. Amanda's life has always been an open book whether we wanted it to be or not. She overshares everything from her dinner plans to her relationship drama. But now there was something she wasn't saying, and it was eating away at me. When I got off the phone, I told my wife what my mother had said. "Do you think there's something going on between them?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "But if there is, it's not my problem anymore." I meant it then. Amanda had crossed the line, and I had no intention of getting dragged back into her mess. But by the middle of the week, Curiosity got the better of me. I checked Kevin's Instagram, hoping to get some insight into the situation. His page was private, which wasn't unusual, but Amanda's was suddenly deactivated. That was strange. Amanda without social media was like a fish out of water. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from Kevin. "Can we talk? Just you and me. I have some things to explain." I stared at Kevin's text, not sure how to respond. This was a guy who barely spoke unless Amanda gave him permission, and now he wanted to explain some things. To me? It didn't sit right. Curiosity won out, though, and I texted back. "Sure. When?" "Tonight," he replied. "I'll come over." That evening, Kevin showed up alone, looking more haggard than I'd ever seen him. His usual clean-cut appearance was gone, his hair was a mess, his shirt was wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Thanks for seeing me," he said as he walked in. We sat down in the living room, and for a few minutes he just stared at the coffee table, fiddling with his wedding ring. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, "I owe you an apology." "For what?" I asked. "For Amanda," he said. "For everything she said to you. And for what happened." Now he had my full attention. "What went on?" Kevin hesitated, as if he wasn't sure how much to tell me. Then he dropped the bomb. "The honeymoon, it wasn't just a honeymoon. It was supposed to be a reset," he said. "For our marriage." I blinked. "You've been married for what, a month? What do you mean, a reset?" Kevin ran a hand through his hair. "Amanda has been difficult, to say the least. Planning the wedding was a nightmare. She went way over budget, ignored every limit I set, and had these crazy meltdowns over the smallest things. I thought it was just the stress of the wedding, but after we got married, it got worse." He paused, looking genuinely embarrassed. "She started accusing me of not loving her enough. Said I didn't do enough to make her feel special. She even threw a vase at me once." A vase. I didn't know what to say. Amanda was a handful, sure, but I had no idea it got that bad. When she started talking about the honeymoon, Kevin continued, "I thought maybe if we got away from it all, she'd calm down. She promised it would be the fresh start we needed. But by the third day, she was complaining about everything. The room wasn't big enough, the food wasn't fancy enough, the snorkeling wasn't exclusive enough." He shook his head. "It was a disaster. And when we got back, I told her I was done. I'm filing for divorce." I froze. "Divorce? Already?" Kevin must have seen the shock on my face because he laughed bitterly. "I know how it sounds. Believe me, I wanted to make it work. But Amanda, she's not who I thought she was. And the worst part? She told me last week that she still talks to her ex-husband." "What?" I blurted out. "Yeah," Kevin said. "She told me it was harmless. But I found texts. She's been venting to him about me since before we were married. She even told him I wasn't man enough for her." That hit me like a ton of bricks. For a moment, I didn't know whether to feel bad for Kevin or angry with Amanda. "Well, yeah," he said, standing up. "I just thought you should know. You were trying to do something good for us, and you didn't deserve what she said to you. I'm sorry you got caught up in all this." As Kevin walked out the door, my wife came into the room. She must have overheard because she just shook her head and said, "I don't even know where to begin." Neither did I. I barely slept that night. Kevin's words played over and over in my head. Was Amanda still talking to Brandon? Complaining about Kevin before they were even married? It was like finding out there was a whole other side to her that I didn't know, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. The next morning I got another call from my mother. "Amanda's here," she said in a low voice. "She's been crying since she came in. I think you two need to talk." "Did Kevin tell her he was filing for divorce?" I asked. There was a pause. "What? Divorce?" "No, she didn't say anything about that." "Of course not. Typical Amanda, she'd never admit things weren't perfect unless she absolutely had to." I debated whether to even go over there, but I figured I might as well get it all out in the open. Maybe she needed to hear the truth, even if she didn't like it. When I got to my parents' house, Amanda was sitting at the kitchen table, her face covered in spots and her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked up at me, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't have that smug, entitled look on her face. "I'm sorry," she said softly. I crossed my arms. Sorry for what, exactly? For what I said at dinner. I was out of line. You didn't deserve that. It wasn't the dramatic, crocodile tear apology I was expecting. She seemed genuinely upset, but I wasn't going to let her off the hook so easily. "Kevin came to see me last night," I said, watching her reaction closely. She froze. "What did he say?" I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "He told me everything, Amanda. The honeymoon, the arguments, the vase, everything. He's filing for divorce, isn't he?" Her lip quivered, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she let out a shaky breath and said, "I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I thought marriage would fix things. I thought if we had this perfect wedding, this perfect honeymoon, everything would be okay. It doesn't work that way," I said. "And talking to Brandon behind Kevin's back? What were you thinking?" She jumped as if I'd slapped her. It wasn't like that. Brandon was going through a divorce, so I thought he'd understand. I just needed someone to vent to." "Vent?" I said. "Amanda, you told him that Kevin wasn't man enough. How is that venting? It's sabotage." Her eyes widened and I realized she didn't know Kevin had found the texts. She opened her mouth to say something, but then she just collapsed, her head in her hands. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she said through her tears. "I'm ruining everything. First Brandon, now Kevin. I don't even know who I am anymore." I didn't know what to say. Amanda had always been self-absorbed and dramatic, but I'd never seen her like this, completely defeated, as if the weight of her own choices had finally caught up with her. "I can't fix this for you," I finally said. "You have to figure it out for yourself." But I meant what I said at dinner. "I'm done bailing you out." She nodded and wiped her face with her sleeve. "I understand." For the first time in years, I actually believed her. "Shall I go on?" Amanda sat quietly for a long time after I finished. It was strange. It was the first time I'd ever seen her not fight back, not try to turn things around and make herself the victim. For once, she looked like she was really listening. But I knew better than to trust her completely. "I'm going to say this once," I told her. "You're an adult, Amanda. Your choices have consequences. If you want to keep throwing tantrums and treating people like garbage, fine. But don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. I've done my part. You screw this up, you're on your own. Forever." Her head snapped up, and I saw a flash of panic in her eyes. "You don't mean that." "Oh, I do," I said. "Because here's the thing, Mom and Dad don't have the money to bail you out anymore. You know that. If you want someone to finance your mistakes, look at him." I pointed at myself. "And guess what? It's not happening again." Amanda opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "You want to leave Kevin? Fine. That's your decision. But don't expect me to pay for your next wedding or your next honeymoon or anything else. You stay with him and try to make it work, or you figure out how to survive on your own. Either way, I'm done being your safety net." Her face fell, and for a second I thought she was going to cry again. But instead, she straightened up, brushed her hair out of her face, and said, "I'll fix this. I promise." "I hope you do," I said, standing up. "Because this is the last chance you'll get." On my way out, my mother stopped me in the hallway. "That was hard," she said in a low voice. "It had to be," I replied. "If I keep saving her, she'll never learn. And honestly, I'm tired of cleaning up her messes." When I got home, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about Amanda or what she might drag me into next. It was like cutting off a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. As for Amanda, I didn't hear from her for a while after that. But a few weeks later I got a text from Kevin. "We're going to counseling," it said. "I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we're trying." I didn't reply. It wasn't my fight anymore.